Hey Dwy guys and Dwy gals. Today I want to talk to you about some of my favorite two-player board games and card games. First of all, in my opinion, all of these games right here are extremely fun. Not to mention, they're a safe activity that you can do without even having to leave your home, which, during these uncertain times, is kind of important. Additionally, all of these games here require a lot of strategy so that you'll be using your brain instead of sitting around doing nothing. Because these are two-player games, these give you a great chance to bond with someone. Play with your mom, play with your brother. I play with Miss Jamie. It gives us a great chance to work together and learn together and play together. Finally, board games are a great value for money. Or your parents' money. Think about it. For $20 or $30, you could go out for dinner one time, you could go to the movies one time, or you could buy a game that you can play over and over again for the rest of your life. And now, let's talk about the games. That's why we're here. The first game I'd like to talk about is Jaipur. This card game is one of the first two-player games that I ever bought, and I've played it a lot with Miss Jamie and my brothers and my dad, and they all liked it so much they all bought their own copy too. Here are some pros about Jaipur. It's really easy to teach. The artwork on the cards is, in my opinion, beautiful. It's usually pretty cheap, only costing around $20. And now there's two different versions you can buy. This one's a bit more expensive right now, but the new version with new art is only about $25 on Amazon right now. Here are a few downsides to the game Jaipur. In addition to the cards in the box, there are also little circular cardboard chips, and after each round, you have to set them all back up again in numerical order, which, especially if the person you're playing against isn't helping you much, it can take a while to set up between rounds. Second of all, this version right here that I have right now is a little expensive on Amazon, about $35, but the price I hope will go down again soon. And finally, this game can get a little bit less fun the more experienced you are playing it, especially once you start to realize that it might not be a good idea to take all the camels from the market, and then you have this back and forth where this person doesn't want to take the camels, but this person also doesn't want to take the camels, and the game can kind of tend to stagnate and turn into a bit of a standoff where nobody wants to be the one to make the first mistake. Our next game is another two-player card game. This time, it's Lost Cities. This is one of my favorite card games, and I've given away a lot of copies of it to my students before. Here are some pros about the game Lost Cities. First of all, it's a really simple game. On your turn, you only have to do two things every time. Put down a card, pick up a card. That's it. On the other hand, this game has a surprising amount of strategy. You have to balance the risk-reward of deciding, should I start that color or not? Because anytime you choose to start a new color, you lose 20 points, and you have to earn those points back. And if you take too many risks, you might actually lose more points than you gain. And Lost Cities is almost always available at a good price. Right now it's available on Amazon for only $17.99, and I've seen it go all the way down to $10 a few times. There are some downsides to the game Lost Cities, especially for new players. One of the things you're going to have to deal with is that it's possible, very possible, to get a negative score, especially if you're playing against someone more experienced. You kind of have to learn about when to take risks and when to play it safe if you don't want to end up with a score below zero. Another downside, that with all the negative points and the multipliers, that the scoring can get pretty complicated. But if you don't feel like doing the math yourself, there are fantastic apps to help you keep track of the score that are really simple and easy to use, and they'll calculate the score for you. Another one of my favorite two-player games is Patchwork. This two-player game is kind of like Tetris, where you're taking different shaped pieces and trying to arrange them on a board. It's not a card game, so it's different than the other two we've talked about so far, but it's one of my favorites. Miss Jamie and I even brought this game with us on vacation last summer. Here are some great things about the game Patchwork. First of all, it's a really unique game. If you haven't played a lot of board games before, then the turn order mechanic is really interesting. where it's not just my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, back and forth until the game ends. Turn order can change based on the type of pieces that you're taking. Also, Patchwork's a really fast game. It's really easy to set up. All you have to do is dump all the pieces on the table and arrange them in a nice big circle. It doesn't matter what order the pieces are in. You can get up and playing in about a minute. Lastly, Patchwork is a super satisfying experience. Just getting to place the pieces on your quilt and trying to make everything slot together just right feels really great. On the other hand, there are some downsides to the game Patchwork. The theme of quilt making is boring, and it can be a hard sell to convince someone to play a game about making quilts with you. But once you play it, you won't mind the theme as much anymore. Some people complain that the colors are a little bit bland. Like with Lost Cities, Patchwork, especially for new players, can result in a negative score, especially if you struggle to pick the right pieces and cover all the spaces on your quilt. You might end up with a score below 0. And lastly, and most importantly, I couldn't find it on stock on Amazon right now, but when it is on stock, it usually sells for around $20. The next game I want to talk about is Seven Wonders Duel. This game is a little bit more strategic than the ones we've talked about so far. It is a 2-player game, and it's a 2-player version of another game called Seven Wonders. I like this game because it's a little bit more complex than your normal 2-player game. There's 3 different ways that you can win. You can win by building up your military strength, you can win a science victory, or if neither of those 2 things happen, you can win just by having the most points at the end of the game. Also, the game has a well-regarded expansion that, as you can see, I haven't opened yet, called Seven Wonders Duel Pantheon, that adds a bit more complexity to the game, and if you get bored of this version, you can spice it up by adding the expansion. The game also comes with this great player aid that explains all the different icons and explains how to set up the cards for each of the 3 rounds. However, Seven Wonders Duel definitely has some downsides. First of all those icons can be really confusing for a new player, especially if you've never played the regular Seven Wonders before. Also, this game can be really mean. The idea of the military victory, that you can push this token back and forth in a sort of tug of war and knock out the other player, can be kind of hurtful sometimes when they're trying to be peaceful and they're working on a science victory and you just knock them right out with a military victory. It can be kind of upsetting. And it's a bit more expensive on Amazon right now, selling for about $30, which is a bit more than usual, but in my opinion, it's worth it. The last game I want to talk about today is the Castles of Burgundy. This game is the game that I have probably played the most out of any game in my collection. This game can be played with 2 to 4 players. Of all the games we've looked at so far today, this one is the most complicated and the most difficult to learn. Here are some things that I love about the game, the Castles of Burgundy. First of all, you can play it with more people, which is great, but it's best with 2 people. There's a lot of strategy in this game. If you're carefully planning each turn, you will be rewarded. And the reward for all that careful planning is huge combos, where you put this piece here, and it allows you to put this piece over here, which then allows you to put this piece over here, and then gain some money, which you use to buy this piece, and you put that piece over there, and before you know it, you feel like a master at the game just for pulling off a really great turn. No matter what you do, everything, or almost everything, gives you some points. So even after your first game, you're gonna get probably over 100 points and feel pretty good about yourself. And considering this is bigger and more complicated than any of the games we talked about so far, it's a steal when it drops down to $20 about once a month on Amazon. There are definitely some cons to the game The Castles of Burgundy. First of all, the art style is terrible. No one's going to see you playing the Castles of Burgundy and say, "Ooh, that looks cool, I want to play." They made a new version with a new art style, and it's somehow even worse. So this is not going to win any World's Prettiest Game competitions. Because it's the most complicated game on our list, your first game, even with only 2 players, can take close to 2 hours as you're still learning the rules and trying to figure out how to make the best choices. Although it's currently at its normal price of about $30, this is definitely worth it. Seeing as how they just announced that school's canceled for at least another 4 weeks here in Maryland, go ahead, check out some of these games. It'll give you something to do instead of driving your parents crazy. Thanks for watching.